staking facilities. So what we're doing, just as Karen explained earlier, we are a validator. So we're running nodes, and we offer this proof of stake. We offer proof of stake as a service. So we're actually enabling this new productive asset class and providing the basic infrastructure. So as this space is kind of very abstract for if you see, like Karen showed us this this code, it's very abstract, but we're really in some kind of way processing the transactions and processing the technical interrelationships in a very hand-on ways. You can just see on the right side by two of my colleagues working on a server, installing a server into a rack. So that's really what we're doing here in Munich. And currently we're staking around 2 billion worth of digital assets in various major proof of stake systems. And that's really our core business. So aside of that, we're also building essential services for the Web3 ecosystem. I think the most popular being Solana Beach, which is an explorer for the Solana chain. It's a bit like Etherscan, but for the Solana network, and it's much cooler from the design, everything, I would just state. And yeah, so basically with staking facilities, everyone with tokens in the chains that we are participating in, that we're involved in, can stake with us. You can just go on our website, check and browse for the different Web3 projects that we have, and just stake there right away from us in a non-custodial way, though, meaning you have sole control of your private keys and your crypto, which is, I think, critical to understand. And there's even a personal customer support to help you onboarding if you are interested in. So if you hold any of these assets, just try it out. But we're also optimize our services for high security, redundancy, and availability. And we did that in an institutional grade manner. So meaning just that it's very interesting for institutional investors that are using our services, especially venture capitalist companies like the services that we offer, as we can offer all kinds of services around staking. As I will continue to explain after maybe talking about our mission. Oh, let me just check if that, yeah. So yeah, maybe before I go into the services, just let me explain what we're actually doing. We really want to develop the industry for convenient staking. So our founders really had this great vision in the very beginning of where people still try to grasp the concept of Bitcoin. They really thought the next step of proof of stake instead of proof of work. And yeah, so we're really trying to make it easy and accessible from a private retail investor to traditional institutions, since the proof of work networks thrive with more participants. And we're searching for the right projects that align with our beliefs and look promising. So far, my colleagues have done a really great job on choosing these and developing compelling projects and working in the ecosystem. And with that being, with lots of dollars worth being on the line, and with important networks, of course, security plays a very big role in our operations. So our services follows the highest security standards of the industry, as we have full control of our operations, with the service being around in Munich, so really bare metal. Being around in really around our office. I will just come to that in the next slide. Further important corner pillars are our services, our flexible staking framework. So we just always check the legal perspective, and we're following all the compliance and regulatory requirements that are quite important for institutional investors as well. And we really have thought through agreements, and we're trying to update them according to the regulatory development. And also we are very much, besides the regulatory aspect, we're also investing directly, of course, and that we're trying to do directly. We try to let me say like this, we try to align our investments with and our goals with the people, the stakeholders within the different networks, so that we are on the same boat. And as I said, we're located in Munich. Although we have a lot of remote colleagues all over the world, where we choose to operate our services here in state-of-the-art data centers around Munich. So really, my colleagues choose very carefully and a thoughtful approach to all what we're doing. So even in a apocalypse, we have uptime guarantee, since these data centers are also for telecom and the very important infrastructures. And that's really what is important to us. But we always focus also heavily on sustainability, since we're trying to see trying to be careful with all the stakeholders within the ecosystem. And that, of course, is very good with proof of stake compared to proof of work. And yeah, so we're running also on 100% renewable energy, and we're a climate neutral company. Yes, so that's as I said. So what we're doing actually, if you think of these nodes and these servers, we have our hardware custom built, and it's reachable in distance to us. Meaning we're not using cloud servers, but we really have, as you have seen the picture in the beginning, really have these big machines, and we're assembling the hardware just right at the corner, actually. So we have a very good way to monitor this and monitor the operations closely, and that's an advantage that we can provide. And this uptime guarantee is, I think, a great fit for institutional investors as well as for a retail investor. But of course, the more money is at stake, the more you really want it in every event you want it secure, I guess. Having said that, we also provide customized agreements towards institutional investors. So we're following updated compliance, and since we are registered and based in Munich as a GmbH, we're doing this in a stable and safe jurisdiction, actually. Knowing where to go and what rules actually apply, although they of course change a lot, but we're trying to keep up with that. And yeah, besides of the mentioned general framework and the possible individual agreement that we can give for institutionals, we can offer automated reporting, which is very relevant for internal reporting, for example, for VC, but also for tax documentation of the staking rewards, which is of course a big topic currently discussed. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you also explaining to us what is staking? Will that come after?
Okay, yeah, of course. So basically, staking is compared to proof of work, which Bitcoin is following, for example, where you have like a mathematical equation that you're trying to solve in order to decide on who gets to do the next transaction. Because it's a block is full of transactions, and that's actually what a block consists of. And with proof of stake, the idea was just to not have this heavy machines trying to solve equations that actually just have the purpose of who gets the next block to transact. Because every time you do a transaction or you're validating a transaction, that's why it's called validators, you're getting a reward. And that's basically what proof of stake is doing. Is just saying, instead of buying all this hardware and trying to spend all this energy, which is not sustainable, we just say you give your stake in, and the higher your stake is, the bigger is your chance to actually get the next transaction. So imagine just a lottery ball, and if you put $10 in, you have a higher chance than someone put in just $1. But it's a complicated technological process. But with that, you decide on who's can put the next transaction, and then we validate that, meaning in this decentralized way, all the other validators and everyone can run a validator, even just from your home. It doesn't have to be in this industry grade way that we're doing it. Then you really, if you're a validator, you get one reward for putting through this transaction.
But what do validators actually do in general? Why do we need validators in a blockchain ecosystem?
Yeah, good question. So actually, when I'm sitting here and I'm sending some Solana, for example, to Yip, or I'm trying to interact in any way with a blockchain, there are even these servers, these validators that just process this transaction that I just sent to Yip. So they just see, okay, Victor has this balance, it's okay. We just checked in the recent historic transactions that we have that Victor really has this balance, and then we can send it to Yip. And if all the validators, like the operators, agree on that, then it is, or it depends on the chain. But if a certain amount agrees on that, then this transaction got through. So that's basically what the validating process is.
Yeah, thanks. It's so integral for understanding like decentralization and blockchain. For us, sometimes who work in that field, it's so easy to, we
To
take it for
just talk
granted.
about it very fast, exactly. Even me, I just just would consider myself also still maybe a little bit a newbie to that, but it's really a very interesting concept, and with proof of stake, which I'm quite grateful that our founders had this vision so early on, that this is really a good way. It's just so interesting that you can have it in such a decentralized manner, and meaning, again, everyone can put up a validator for the very chain that he likes. Of course, you need some technical knowledge, but even if you're a non-techie, there are always roles in this field. And it's really a nice, interesting way to cut out the middleman, because what I just described is I'm sending something to Yip, and we don't need a bank that is sitting. A bank is just an example of the use cases, but a bank sitting there trying to do this transaction and really just comparing every 6 weeks, every 6 days, all the transactions, and then really settle it. Because that's the way that it's actually been done in a traditional way now. So if I just want to send some money to, for example, South Africa, still the fastest way to really have the full control over this money would be if I step into a plane and take this cash with me today, which is actually quite crazy if we think of it today. And yeah, so the technology just advanced to a point where it's possible with cryptography and with the blockchain technology to have a way to do this. And the proof of stake is just not the classical proof of work mining as I described earlier. But you're right, we always often take this new technology very fast for granted, as this is a very fast moving industry. And it's sometimes hard to keep up that you even forget that there's a lot of basic knowledge that you will need, right?
Yeah. We will have the next speaker speaking about like on a bird's perspective, macro perspective, the effect of Web3 and decentralization on our future workforce. So yeah, it's really cool that you will synthesize all the learnings from today.
Yeah, oh, it's quite interesting. As I also would say, even in staking facilities, there's a very different, and that's what I meant when I said earlier, there's a different breed of people in this is founding. It's not like the classical startups. It's not like any way that you could categorize it. It's very much people who really believe in doing something for the greater good. Of course, not talking about everyone there in this industry, but really also I've been to Lisbon a couple of weeks ago to a conference, and it's really nice to see how people are motivated there and what kind of different ways they're just working together. As for example, in a very remote way. Some of these people have been working 2 years together and saw their first time each other in Lisbon, which is I think awesome to just see that these DAOs or decentralized autonomous organizations, what they're called now, really working with almost no hierarchy and just managing themselves. So very, very interesting. I would like to hear the talk just right after. Maybe just let me follow with that we're really deeply involved in our portfolio project. So Wolfgang Albrecht, our CEO and also co-founder, is on board of the Solana Foundation. Maybe you heard about the Solana token and the Solana chain. It's also very interesting and with rapid development. And Gary, our CTO, is also our technical lead, is a council member in the Graph. So we're really trying to get involved as well as with the regulators as we try to participate in an open dialogue with the regulators, trying to educate them, give them our perspective. So we are very open with them on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and even why we're doing it, just to have a positive influence in the ongoing regulation making. And I mentioned Julius earlier, our COO. He also holds a chair in the European Blockchain Association. And yeah, so we're trying to work on the different ends on how we can develop this Web3 idea. Maybe just to give some examples in some of the projects that we invest in. So mostly we were very early investors in these things. And so we invest in layer ones as well as in layer two networks. Layer ones, maybe giving an explanation, being like the basic first layer on which new applications actually can be run on, like an app store would be the layer one maybe, and then the different kind of apps would be layer two. And also into the decentralized finance networks, which are also quite interesting and thriving. Yeah, so maybe let me come to an end here, and if there are some questions, just maybe ask me. And if you're interested in learning more about staking facilities or to get engaged with us, there are the various possibilities to contact us.
Thanks very much. So everyone, welcome to ask your questions in the chat until somebody's asking questions. I have a bunch of questions, but I also want to give the community the opportunity to share. Maybe I think, Victor, somebody who came from outside into the market, what were the top 3 or 1 or 2 key insights or observations that were kind of bewildering to you? Which way does this industry tick differently to, you know, the food industry that you came from? And because you also came from the startup world, so it's not like you've worked in corporate all day, like all your life.
No, definitely not. So I worked much more as an entrepreneur or at Burger House than I was in the finance world, in the pure corporate big investment bank finance world. And so the differences between the people in Web3 and maybe traditional industries, I would say, is very much that the whole philosophy has to be around being decentralized and inclusive. Because even now, where we are actually getting bigger and bigger in some of these projects with our validating process and our stake gets higher and higher, we are trying to focus us on having a decentralized way, and that of course always needs to have a balance. So that it means that compared with the food service industry, we always talk, Burger House of course talks with Hans and Glück, for example, but you can always feel that there's a very competitive way, and that it's really it's not so much collaboration, and that's very different as we talk to our other. Sorry. That was just Siri thinking I'm talking to Siri. No, but that's really a difference, because if I talk to so-called competitors in that field, we're really thinking about the issues together. For example, Lido is a very good example for that. That's a liquid staking possibilities. And actually what it does is you can stake with Lido, and instead of staking directly with a validator or someone who's offering staking as a service, and there's an algorithm which then shares with the very different validator companies your stake, meaning it just spreads it, and this just enhances this decentralization. And I think that's really the core thing, that the whole technology just works if it's decentralized and inclusive. And that's very different from all, I wouldn't even say just the food industry, but just the very classical way of doing business, where especially I felt that also investment banking, where you just have a very competitive nature.
Okay.
Not to maybe I add, not to say that it is not competitive and people are not trying really to get lots of stuff done, but it's just the way of approaching it and seeing the better good maybe in the work.
So how does collaboration in a decentralized world work? You work actually with some protocols that are completely DAO, right? How can one imagine how these DAOs actually work? How can they actually produce things that capture billions of dollars in investment?
Yeah, so I think one important idea that I just understood myself a couple of months ago is that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's that decisions or that the process is more efficient. Because if lots of people have lots of say and you have a way where everyone wants to participate and talk, often it even takes longer than you just have one leader. But of course, it represents much more what actually this community wants, or what this community is thriving to, hopefully. And so ways of this, for example, Lido is a DAO, as I just mentioned, this application. And if there are any decisions on updates on where one should go, they have their rules of consensus, and they just, everyone has the Lido DAO tokens, and with them you can just vote on your behalf. So that's actually the nice thing about Web3, that because this is for every application that has tokens mostly, that really if you have a share, you can decide on what's going on. This will be also for future games, for example. You just can decide on, if you have a share, how the game should develop, what are important aspects. So you just log on into your wallet, and there's for example, okay, you should mention that most of this communication is done over various fields, as Twitter, Telegram, and Discord are the most liked applications for that. And yeah, so you really have to be in these kind of talks to understand where the development is, and then people would just say, okay, here's a vote. Someone is asking to do this and that, and then you would just vote according to what, according to some of tokens you have, your vote would count, and that's how decisions get passed through. And in a DAO, it is everyone, of course, has his job and a role that is assigned, and then there are people who identify tasks, and then there are people who try to find the right people to do the task, or people who just say, I want to do the task, and then you get rewarded in the native currency that you're working in. So it's quite interesting. There are people who stop working on their regular jobs, and they just work in different DAOs. And that's not only technical. There are community workers, all kind of things that these decentralized autonomous organizations offer.
Thank you so much, Victor, for sharing straight out of the heart of Munich how actually you secure the blockchains of the world. It's quite impressive. So thank you for spending time with us at World Munich Forum.
Thank you very much for having me.